Hello, and it's time for Chapter 4 of The Phoenix and the Carpet by E. Nesbit. Now, Chapter 4 is called Two Bazaars, and I need to tell you, because bazaar isn't really a word we use very much these days, a bazaar is another word for a fete. So you might have a school fete, or a church bazaar. It's also used for markets, very often in other countries. That will give you a clue about what the chapter's about. But it's called Two Bazaars. See what these naughty children get up to this time. Mother was lovely. That was why all of them, but most particularly Anthea, felt rather uncomfortable at keeping the secret of the wishing carpet and the phoenix. Anthea had decided that she must tell Mother the truth, however unlikely it would be that Mother would not believe it. "Then I will have done what's right," she said to the phoenix. "She won't believe you. You're quite safe," said the golden bird. Anthea chose a time when Mother was in the drawing-room. "Mother dear," said Anthea. "Yes, love," said Mother. "What about Cook? I know where she is." "Do you, dear?" said Mother. "Well, I wouldn't take her back after the way she has behaved." "It's not her fault," said Anthea. "May I tell you about it from the beginning?" Mother laid down her pen where she was writing letters and looked at Anthea. "Well, it's like this," she said in a hurry. "That egg, you know, that came in the carpet, we put it in the fire and it hatched into the phoenix, and the carpet was a wishing carpet, and—" "A very nice story, darling," said Mother, taking up her pen. "Now do be quiet. I've got a lot of letters to write. I'm going to Bournemouth tomorrow with the lamb, and there's that bazaar." Anthea went back to her homework, and Mother's pen scratched busily. "But Mother," she said, when Mother put down the pen to lick an envelope, "the carpet takes us wherever we like, and—" "Well, I wish it would take you where you could get a nice few Indian things for my bazaar," said Mother. "I promised them, and now I've no time to go shopping." "Well, it would," said Anthea, "but Mother—" "Dear," said Mother a little impatiently, for she had picked up her pen again. "Well, the carpet took us to a place where you couldn't have a cough, and the lamb hasn't coughed since, and we took Cook because—" "Darling," said Mother, "you know I love to hear the things you make up, but I am most awfully busy." "But it's true," said Anthea desperately. "You shouldn't say that," said Mother gently, and then Anthea knew it was hopeless. "Are you going away for long?" asked Anthea. "I've got a cold," said Mother, "and Daddy's very anxious about it, and the lamb's got a cough." "He hasn't coughed since Saturday," the lamb's eldest sister replied. "I wish I could think so," Mother replied, "and Daddy's got to go to Scotland for work. I do hope you'll be good children." We will," said Anthea. "When's the bazaar?" "On Saturday," said Mother, "at the school." Mother and lamb went away, and Father went away, and there was a new cook. The phoenix wanted a week's rest, and asked that it might not be disturbed, and it hid its golden gleaming self, and nobody could find it. So that on Wednesday afternoon everyone decided to go somewhere on the carpet, and the journey had to be undertaken without the phoenix. They had promised Mother that they would go to the bazaar on Saturday. "Let's go and see the lamb," said Jane. But everyone was agreed that if they appeared suddenly in Bournemouth it would frighten Mother out of their wits. So they sat on the carpet and thought and thought and thought. "I know," said Cyril. "Please, carpet, take us somewhere where we can see the lamb and Mother, but no one can see us." "Except the lamb," said Jane quickly. And the next moment they found themselves and the carpet sat on another thick soft carpet of brown pine needles. There were pine trees overhead, and the little stream was running as fast as ever it could between steep banks, and there, sitting on the pine needles, was Mother, without her hat, and the sun was shining brightly, although it was November, and there was the lamb, as jolly, and not coughing at all. "The carpet's tricked us," said Robert gloomily. "Mother will see us if she turns her head." But the faithful carpet had not tricked them. Mother turned her head and looked straight at them and did not see them. "We're invisible," whispered Cyril. But the girls thought it was horrible to have Mother looking straight at them, just as though they weren't there. "I don't like it," said Jane. "It's horrid," said Anthea. But at that moment the lamb saw them, and he plunged towards the carpet, shrieking their names. "Oh, oh, 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 Anthea, Anthea!" Anthea caught him and kissed him, and so did Jane. They couldn't help it. He looked such a darling, with his precious face all dirty, quite in the old familiar way. "I love you, I do, and you, and you, and you," cried the lamb. It was a delicious moment. Even the boys thumped their baby brother joyously on the back. Then Anthea looked at Mother. Mother's face had gone quite white, and she was staring at the lamb as if she thought he'd gone mad. Lamb, come here, come to Mother," she cried, and jumped up and ran to the baby. She was so quick that the invisible children had to leap back, or she would have felt them. Mother picked up the lamb and hurried away from the wood. "Let's go home," said Jane. "It felt as if Mother didn't love us." So they said home, and home they went. "I don't care about being invisible myself," said Cyril, "at least not with my own family. But it would be different if you were a prince or a burglar." "Oh, I wish Mother hadn't gone away," said Jane. "This house is beastly without her." "I think we should do what she said," Anthea said. "But we don't know what her wishes are," put in Cyril. "She said," Anthea, very close to tears, "she said, 'Get Indian things for my bazaar,' but I know she thought it was only play." "Well, let's get them," said Robert. "We'll go first thing on Saturday morning." There was no finding the phoenix, so on Saturday they sat on the wishing carpet and said, "We want Indian things for Mother's bazaar. Will you please take us where people will sell us heaps of Indian things?" The carpet swirled their senses away and restored them on the outskirts of a gleaming Indian town. They knew it was India at once because of the shape of the domes and the roofs, and beside, a man went by with an elephant. They rolled up the carpet and Robert carried it, and they walked boldly into the town. It was very warm, and once more they had to take off their London in November coats and carry them in their arms. The streets were narrow and strange, and the clothes of the people in the streets were strange, and the talk of the people was the strangest of all. "I can't understand a word," said Cyril. "How on earth are we to ask things for our bazaar?" "Well, we asked the carpet to take us where we could get Indian things for bazaars," said Anthea, "and it will." Just as she had finished speaking, a gentleman in a turban came up to them and bowed deeply. He spoke, and they were thrilled to hear English words. "My Rani," she asks, "are you lost, and do you want to sell your carpet? Will you come to see her?" They followed the stranger, which was a bit of a dangerous thing to do, and he led them through the crooked streets to the Rani's palace. The old Rani, which is a name for an Indian queen, sat on a low cushioned seat, and there were lots of other ladies with her, all in veils and sparkling with gold and jewels. The turbaned gentleman stood and interpreted what the children said and what the queen said, and when the queen asked to buy the carpet, the children said no. "Why?" asked the Rani, and Cyril told her the long story. When the story was ended, she spoke, and the interpreter explained that she had said, "Little one, thou art a heaven-born teller of tales," and she threw him a string of turquoises from her neck. "Oh, how lovely!" cried Jane and Anthea. Cyril bowed several times and then cleared his throat and said, "Thank you very, very much. But please tell her I would rather she gave me some of the cheap things in the bazaar. Tell her I want to sell them again and give the money to buy clothes for poor people who haven't got any." So the queen sent out for pretty little things, and her servants piled the carpet with them. Anthea said, "Now the queen shall see a magic thing." Cyril made a very polite farewell speech, and quite suddenly he ended with the words, "I wish we were at the bazaar at our school." And of course they were. The queen and her ladies were left with their mouths open, gazing at the bare space on the marble floor where the carpet and the children had been. Cyril's stories had taken some time, so had the meal of strange sweet foods they had had while the pretty things were being bought, and the lights were already lit in the school. The children crept out under a stall at the bazaar. They got out at the end, but Robert's hand, as he cautiously crept out, was actually stepped on by Mrs. Biddle, and who can blame Robert if he did yell? A crowd instantly collected. "I'm very sorry, I'm sure," said Mrs. Biddle. "Come on out. Whatever you mean by creeping about under the stalls like earwigs?" "We were looking at things in the corner." The crowd slowly dispersed. Then Robert wriggled out from under the stall with some brass and some beautiful boxes. "Oh!" cried Miss Peasmarsh. "Then Charles has not forgotten after all." "Excuse me," said Mrs. Biddle, with fierce politeness. "These objects were deposited behind my stall. Of course they are for me." "My stall touches yours at the corner," said poor Miss Peasmarsh timidly, "and my cousin did promise." The children sidled away until at last Robert said, "After all our trouble, she's very nasty," said Jane. It was Anthea who said, "Miss Peasmarsh is nice too. Who's got a pencil?" A large piece of pale blue paper lay among the rubbish in the corner. She wrote, "All these Indian things are for Miss Peasmarsh's stall," and crept back among the boards and trestles to join the others in the corner. When the blue paper was discovered, all the splendid shining Indian things were given to Miss Peasmarsh for her stall. Anthea and Jane begged her to let him help her set up all the things. It took some time to arrange everything on the stall. The carpet was spread over it, and the dark colours showed up the brass and silver and jewels. It was a happy and busy afternoon, and when Miss Peasmarsh and the girls had sold every single one of the pretty things from the Indian bazaar far, far away, Anthea and Jane went off with the boys. They had a beautiful tea, suddenly presented to them, and Miss Peasmarsh joined them before they had more than 3 cakes each. It was a merry party. "We ought to get back to the stall," said Anthea. "There's nothing to go back for," said Miss Peasmarsh happily. "Thanks to you, dear children, we've sold everything." "Well, there's the carpet," said Cyril. "Oh, don't worry about that. I've even sold that," said Miss Peasmarsh happily. "Mrs. Biddle gave me 10 shillings for it. She said it would do for her servant's bedroom." The children were struck dumb. How could they say, "The carpet is ours"? Who brings carpets to a bazaar? So they said, "Thank you very much for the jolly tea," and went to find Mrs. Biddle. Cyril said, "Mrs. Biddle, we were going to have that carpet. Would you sell it to us?" "Certainly not," said Mrs. Biddle. "Go away, little boy." He found the others and said, "It's no use. We must watch where it goes, and, Anthea, I don't care what you say, it's our carpet. We wouldn't be burglaring it. It would be a sort of rescue party and not wrong." Then they waited on the pavement outside until Mrs. Biddle came out and was driven away in a cab with the many things she hadn't sold and the few things she had bought, among others the carpet. The children hung on behind the cab until it reached Mrs. Biddle's house. When she and the carpet had gone in and the door was shut, Anthea said, "Don't let's do daring and dashing rescue. Let's give her the chance. Let's ring and ask to see her." The others hated to do this, but at last they agreed. So they knocked on the door and they rang, and a scared-looking parlour-maid opened the front door. While they were asking for Mrs. Biddle, they saw her. She was in the dining-room, and she'd already pushed back the table and spread out the carpet to see how it looked on the floor. "I knew she didn't want it for her servant's bedroom," Jane muttered. Anthea walked straight past the parlour-maid, and the others followed her. Mrs. Biddle had her back to them and was smoothing down the carpet with the same boot that had trampled on the hand of Robert. "Who is it, Jane?" she asked in a mean voice, and then turning suddenly she saw who it was. Once more her face grew purply violet, a deep dark violet with anger. "You wicked, daring little thing!" she cried. "How dare you come here at this time of night? Be off, or I'll send for the police." "Oh, don't be angry," said Anthea soothingly. "We only wanted to ask you to let us have the carpet. We have 12 shillings between us, and—" "How dare you!" cried Mrs. Biddle, and her voice shook with anger, and she stamped that foot of hers. "It really is our nursery carpet," she said. "You ask anyone." "Let's wish ourselves home," said Cyril in a whisper. "No," Robert whispered back. "She'd be there too." "I wish Mrs. Biddle was in an angelic good temper," cried Anthea suddenly. "It's worth trying," she said to the others. Mrs. Biddle's face went from purple to light violet, and from violet to mauve, and from mauve to pink. Then she smiled, quite a jolly smile. Once more the carpet had done its work, and not only on Mrs. Biddle. The children suddenly felt good and happy and not at all tired. "You're a jolly good sort," said Cyril. "I can see that now. I'm so sorry we made you cross at the bazaar today." "Oh, not another word," said the changed Mrs. Biddle. "Of course you can have the carpet, my dears, if you've taken such a fancy to it. No, I don't need your money. Take the carpet and we'll say no more about it. Have a piece of nice cake before you go. I'm so sorry I stepped on your hand, my boy. Is it all right now?" "Oh, yes, thank you," said Robert. "I say, you are kind." "Not at all," said Mrs. Biddle heartily. "I'm delighted to be able to give any little pleasure to you dear children." And she helped them roll up the carpet, and the boys carried it away between them. "Well," said Cyril as they went along the street. "Yes," said Robert. "And the odd part is that you feel just as if it was real, her being so jolly, I mean, and not only the carpet making her nice." Perhaps she is nice. Perhaps it was real," said Anthea, "only her niceness was covered up with crossness and tiredness and other things, and the carpet took them away." "I hope it'll keep them away," said Jane. The carpet had done many wonders in its day, but the case of Mrs. Biddle is, I think, the most wonderful. And we must remember to look for kindness inside ourselves all the time and not be hidden away because we haven't got a magic wishing carpet. Or perhaps you have. Tune in tomorrow to find out what happens in chapter 5. Bye.